Start
This
the
call
recording
is
now.
being recorded.
So I'll tell you a little bit about Kashable, William. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I love it.
All right. So we're a benefit. We're an employee benefit. We provide employees access to low-cost credit during emergencies and times of hardship. The idea is that most American workers live paycheck to paycheck. Right? 78% of American workers live paycheck to paycheck, and about half of Americans can't cover an unexpected expense, around $400. So the idea is that a lot of people, when the unexpected happens, emergencies, a time of hardship, medical expense, car repair, home improvement because your basement flooded. When these things happen, people don't have a good place to turn, and their paycheck can't cover it. So traditionally, 20, 30 years ago, big banks might have been in the business of providing an unsecured loan to more people. But now they really only want to serve the top 10%, just not in their strategy.
Right.
So in recent times, when emergencies happen, the average American is dipping into their 401k. They're taking a 401k loan. They are potentially asking their employer for a pay advance. They are reaching out to a high interest option because those banks aren't there to serve them. So there's this void here where most Americans don't have access to immediate, affordable, transparent, responsible credit. So how do you provide low-cost credit, let's say, to Americans across the credit spectrum, across the wage spectrum? How do you deliver something that others haven't been able to figure out a way to deliver? Well, what we did at Kashable is we said, hey, healthcare and retirement companies have been delivering product through the employer for decades.
That's right.
They identified that the employer is a great place to deliver product. There are underwriting efficiencies, there are transactional efficiencies, it makes origination easier. It's just a really nice place to operate. So why hasn't anyone done it with credit, with essentially borrowing and lending money?
Right.
So that's what we figured out. Say, hey, as a lender, if we're operating through the employer and we can get repaid through payroll, that mitigates a ton of risk.
That's right.
If we can rely on the employer to vet us and stand behind us and tell their employee base that this is a lender that we really trust, because we know that they're going to be low cost and we know that they're going to be responsible. There's protections in place. It just makes a lot of sense. So that's what we did about 4 years ago. We said, hey, we want to start a company. We want to help fill this void and give working Americans access to low-cost credit. Let's do it through operating through the employer. And so that's what we're doing. We're lending money that gets repaid through payroll deduction over 6, 12, 18, 24 months. And the fact that it gets repaid through payroll means that we don't care as much about someone's credit score, right? We can start to rely on employment data. So the key thing here is that we can look at an employee that has a poor credit score, but they've been on the job for 5 or 6 years and they work at a low turnover employer. We don't care about their low credit score because we know they're going to stay on the job.
So I love this on like 19 different levels. So as an employee engagement opportunity, as what people would call a perk or a benefit, this is just yet another way for companies to engage their employees. This is easy for them because again, it's going to be going through payroll, so it's easy for them to, and it gets us away from kind of the predatory Ace Cash Express or payday loans or loan sharks and other nefarious types of things. This is easy. Things happen, shit happen, if you will. And occasionally you just need to have access to a small loan, and it's going to be paid. It's going to be taken out of your paycheck. So, you know, you don't have the option on whether or not you can repay it or not. If
Exactly.
you're going to take the loan, you're going to you're going to pay it back, and this is how it's going to be done. I love it. I mean, I love it because I don't think it's just a blue collar issue. You know, I
It's
think it would be naturally that we would think that, like, oh yeah, a machinist, you know, needs this. I'm pretty much thinking of a lot of my neighbors that needs this. So I think this goes across the strata. So I think it fits. I like that it fits across industries. I like that it fits across, you know, blue collar and white collar, gray collar, all of that. I like that a lot. I like that HR can then go to their employees and say, "Hey, this happens. Like we're no judgment. You know, when these things happens, your hot water heater burst and your hardwoods they need to be resurfaced. Like we get it. So here's we work with this firm. This is what they do. This is how they'll get you the money, and you'll get them the money back. And we're providing it as a service to our employees.
yeah.
I don't see any downsides. So I see it as a perk. Why? So a couple of natural things kind of come to mind. Why hasn't someone done this before? A, B. Um, are you having difficulty getting into HR? Are you having difficulty getting them to understand the perk?
That's good questions. And just to address, you know, what you just said, the fact that it's not just your minimum wage worker. That this
Right.
this is, you know, we have 1 in 10 Americans, that, you know, 1 in 10 workers making $100,000 or more live paycheck to paycheck. So
Mm-hmm.
it's certainly
Yeah.
a problem that's across the spectrum. The more you make, the more you spend, and unfortunately, you
Yeah.
know, that's how it goes. But yeah, so why haven't people done this before? I think the main reason is that the technology advances in the last, you know, 5 years, 5 to 10 years, make it easier. You know, there are a lot of transactions that take place in our system, and you know, the fact that we can build our software on the cloud, and we can have all these things happen uh, seamlessly, and it's all automated. It just wouldn't have been able to happen, you know, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, you know, we
Right.
partner with the largest benefit administration companies out there, Alight Solutions, Benefit Focus, and
Mm-hmm.
it's also their technology 10, 15 years ago just wouldn't have been able to handle this as well, whether it's the eligibility feeds or the payroll deduction stuff. So I guess technology's allowed us to get here. I think it's just a very competitive work employment market, right? So HR folks are doing everything they can now to consider and add more benefits, because benefits can help with their recruiting and their retention. So we're more appetizing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
HR folks are looking outside of just the core health, dental, you know, retirement. They need to add some more value, and they can do this by offering products like Kashable. They can do it at no cost, and it's just the only reason we work is because of the employer,
That's
and
right.
the relationship that they have with the employee.
Right.
Um,
What's what's compelling is you kind of hit on the things that I really love. It's the recruitment of talent. You've got a new story. It's like we care about the whole employee. We care about you when you're at your best, and you know, potentially when things are hard for you. We're not going to give up on you. And we've got some things in place to kind of EAP wise and otherwise. We've got some programs in place to take care of you. That's a good story in recruiting, and then if you have that, if you can back it up, it's a great way to engage people. So the recruitment leads to people that then get onboarded, then they get taught about these things. Then there's consumption. It engages them in a way like the company has programs, you know, to repay student loans. It has, you know, it does all of these things. These companies they're trying to figure out ways to build a better relationship with their employees and engage them on you know a deeper level than a paycheck. Um, I think where you also mentioned retention, which I think is another important building block. But I'd also go one just a little bit further than the retention, because I think you also have a great story with the retention of top talent. And the reason that I want you to kind of emphasize that down the road is that's what keeps HR up at night. Like you can boil all of HR, everything. You can take all of HR and boil it up to one thing. It's the retention of top talent. Because they believe that 80% of the value of a firm comes from 20% of the workforce. That's what succession is built around, the concept of succession. And so those folks, we might think those A players, we might have an idea that those people are the ones that are physically conservative, and that they're the ones that would never need some of those, and we'd be wrong. And so this is yet another tool, an arrow in the quiver, if you will, to retain that top talent. So it goes all the way across the value chain. So it helps us recruit talent, and because there's a great story of hey, listen, it's baseball. You're a great baseball player if you're batting 250. You're a great employee if you're batting 250. You're gonna have some good days and some bad days, good weeks and bad weeks. You're gonna have some good times and tall cotton, and you're gonna have some times when you just don't want to come to work. Things are really bad. Okay, we want the whole you. We're recruiting the whole you because we see the value in the whole you. And this is a way for us to put some things in place to help you when those things happen. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when your drivetrain is going to go out.
Yeah, and I would add to that as far as also the productivity aspect. There's all this data out there about good. Employees, living and working with financial stress and how much that does to a company's productivity, and it's just causes a lot of inefficiencies. So if we can help to alleviate some of this financial stress, so that people can go to work and not think about how they're going to pay for this medical expense that's coming up, or Hurricane Harvey just hit their home in Houston. How are they going to repair their basement that flooded? If we can help alleviate that financial stress and get people back to work and also just present while they're at work, I think we can help workforces become more productive over time.
I love this. Okay, so I got a thing on that before we get to something else. Do you know why couples fight? Have you ever kind of architected a framework of this?
I mean, I imagine finances is up there.
Okay. 4 things. All couples fight about 4 things. Okay, and they're in no particular order, and there's no weighted score. Distribution of labor, chores. Who does what? Do you take out the trash? Do I take out the trash? Do you wash the dishes? Do I pick up my socks? Whatever. So chores. Fight over chores. 2, finance. How are we spending money? Are you spending money? Have you spent that money? Do we have separate money? Are you buying $1,800 golf clubs? Are you buying $6,000 shoes? Whatever. Money, finance, and the concept of finance is a constant argument. 3, sex. So you can just leave that where that is, but couples fight about sex. So, and the 4th is family. They fight over who's going to go where, whose uncle does this, and where do we spend Christmas and Thanksgiving and all that other stupid stuff. Those are the 4 buckets. You can break every fight you've ever had, with your partner, your wife, your girlfriend, whatever. You can break it down into those 4 buckets. So finance is in there. Now, what's interesting, you've touched on, I think, potential partners for you. So the people like Will, the people that are doing mindfulness and well-being and wellness, so Limeade and others like that, those folks are potential partners for you to do co-marketing with. because they're dealing, in Will's case, Will is WHIL, by the way. So in their case, they're dealing with mindfulness and teaching people how to reduce stress and yoga and just basically how to de-stress their lives. And it's a perk that's offered through work, a benefit offered through work. So for you, it's like they're dealing with the mind part of it, how to reduce stress. Y'all are dealing with the physical part of reducing that stress. And you got an applicable way to then go and take care of that stress. So imagine those two things together. So, we're going to take care of, okay, your drivetrain just went out, it's an $800 bill. Okay, got it. We've got a way to take care of it, and we've got a way for you to repay it. Done. They've got a way for you to then rethink and reframe things so that you're less stressful. And again, a lot of this gets back to, you nailed it earlier, productivity. It gets people back to being productive faster. So you've got some potential partners out there that you don't compete with.
Right.
They don't do what you do, and you don't do what they do, and you're not going to do what they do. But it's natural where you can go after the market together and form partnerships and say, hey, listen, we're marketing to the same people. Let's go in with a strategy that says, hey, stress is a killer. Stress kills productivity. That's the name of the webinar series. And then you talk about the financial part of it, and then they can talk about how to treat it. It's done. Go after the market together. So you got some natural partners.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because we're such a versatile benefit. We affect so many different parts of the benefits landscape. If you broke it down to, health, wealth, and wellness, let's say, healthcare, right? The rising out-of-pocket medical expenses, these high-deductible health plans that employers are sort of, being forced almost to offer to save money. They're worried that their employees are preventing care, delaying necessary health care, which can then turn to catastrophic claims later on. They're preventing this care because they don't want to pay these deductibles. So a lot of employers will look at us and say, hey, Kashable could be a really good way to give our employees a tool, access to some credit, so that they're not worried about these out-of-pocket costs. They can at least cover them to get the necessary care they need. And then other employers have these issues on the wealth side where, hey, 30% of my employees are taking loans from their 401k. They're depleting their retirement income. They're treating their 401k like a bank account. They're not going to have enough money to retire on time. And if you're the CFO of that company, you're saying, well, we all know who the most expensive employees are. It's those that are nearing their retirement. They're 65. They bring up our healthcare costs. They're certainly high on the comp scale. So we're an issue there. And then you look at the wellness stuff, like you just mentioned. There's so many awesome vendors in that space, whether it's wellness or even if it's EAP programs, right? You look at these EAP programs, half their calls that they probably receive could be solved, at least at the front end, if the person had access to a couple $1,000 at a low cost. So it's crazy how versatile we are. But I think that our messaging, you don't want to spread yourself too thin. You want to have concise messaging for those people that are concerned about the healthcare cost. You want to have concise messaging for the 401k loans, and you want to have concise messaging on how stress kills productivity and how you can partner with those folks.
That's right. At the end of the day, this makes people's lives better, and it makes work better. And by making work better, the whole concept of engagement is to get people to be more productive. Like let's just call it what it is. It's a fancy word of really kind of getting at discretionary effort, and that's okay. Like let's cards face up. That's what it is. We're trying to get more out of what we've invested in our employees. That's okay. That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we do that? What things do we need to put in front of them that help them come into work and be focused on work as much as possible during the window of work that they're there? And it's funny. It goes back into my history a little bit. Back in the '80s, I thought I wanted to be, coming out of high school, I thought I wanted to be an industrial psychologist. And so through the University of Texas, I reached out to a guy with Team Xerox or Xerox, and I'm a young buck, and so I call him up and I say, hey, listen, I don't really know what I want to do, but I believe I want to do what you do. And and he goes, okay, all right, well, why don't you come in and let's talk a little bit about it. So I come in his office and he's wearing sweats, and he says, okay, let me tell you a story. Here's my job. My job is most of the people I interact with have problems with alcohol, cocaine, marriage infidelity, or financial difficulty. My job is to figure out whatever the problem is, resolve the problem, and get them back to work. That's my job.
Right.
So my job is to be their friend, take them out, play some golf, get to understand what's going on, and get them back to productivity. The faster I can get them back to productivity, the faster the business can get what they need out of the person. And it's fascinating. I mean, this is like '87. Like, this fascinating, because they were looking at engagement in a way of saying, and they had corporate psychologists on staff to, basically make sure that they could get their people back to top productivity fast, because everyone's going to have kind of that, okay, well, what do we got to do to get you back to productivity? I think you guys have a great idea. I mean, now I'm just trying to figure out, like, okay, where's the best market? Like, where's the best vertical market to kind of go into, and co-marketing and other partners to kind of go in and work with, and because I don't see a no. Like, I don't see a downside for anybody. You don't have to take a loan, so there's no downside there. For HR, it's just it's a perk, it's a benefit, it's an opportunity to show that you actually care about employees. It could also possibly even help you become the best places to work, an employer of choice. So, like, I don't see a downside there. And the way that things are paid back, again, these are things that everyone's risk is mitigated. The risk for the individual, the company, y'all, everybody's risk is taken care of. So I don't see no's. So
Right.
I love it. What can I do to be helpful? How can I help?
Well, I think the way you framed it, as far as I think a lot of your background, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I see recruiting daily, it's on the recruiting, talent acquisition, talent retention side. I think you obviously know a lot about HR, but we come from purely the benefits side of things, and I don't
Right.
think we look enough at how much benefits can affect the talent acquisition, retention side of things.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think that's what I'm interested in learning more about, is how HR people or recruiters use benefits as a tool to both attract
Oh,
and retain.
dude, it's I mean, I'll break it down for you in just a couple ways. It is a high talent market, which means in basic economics, scarcity and surplus, right? So we're in an era where it's scarcity. Talent is scarce. It's even more scarce in certain areas. So healthcare, software engineers, etc. Like, you just can't find them.
Right.
Like, you have to rip them out of another company. That's how you find them. You literally have to steal them from somebody. So you're in a high talent market, which means that everything's competitive, even more competitive than normal. Normally, recruiting is kind of it's a sport. It's a competitive sport. But it's made more difficult when its scarcity is at play. High talent market is what we call it. So add some complexity to that. People under 30, the job search for them goes like this. They Google the company, they Glassdoor the company, they go into LinkedIn, they reach out to former employees, and that's all before they apply to the job.
That's
so they're
times have
going to
changed.
go. Times have changed. They're going to go learn everything about you and stalk you and find out everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the warts, all that stuff before they even apply. Now that's called employer brand. And there's a whole bailiwick there about employer brand and about how you put your true self as a company forward rather than as glamorized, idealized self. You put, hey, listen, Amazon's a great example of this. Amazon's Wall Street. We work 110 hours a week. We're all type A personalities. We work really hard with really smart people. Best idea wins. Meritocracy. That's our culture. If that's you, then you'll fit into this culture. If that's not you, then don't apply. So
Right.
that's not a bad culture. That's not a good culture. That's just their culture. So that employer brand means more today than it did just 5 years ago. So that's one thing. Then you have people under 30 that, again, that job search part, you've already got kind of that bit. Now, when they're in the interview, there's 3 questions that we didn't ask even 5 years ago. What's next? How are you going to train me? And how are you going to reward me? So these are questions that get asked in the interview phase. So they're asking, what's internal mobility look like?
Right.
If you can't answer an internal mobility question as a recruiter, the talent moves on. They're not trying to fix you. They're just going to move on to the next job. Okay.
Yeah.
Second question, how are you going to train me? It's a skills development question, training and development, learning and development question. It's inherent that I'm coming to your job. I'm going to be here, but how are you going to make me better? Is a question that everyone under 30, talented people, let's just say, ask in the interview phase. Like we're still trying to figure out if there's a fit here, and they're asking that question. Third question is, how are you going to recognize me? How are you going to praise me? It's that's where y'all come in in a really interesting way. Is what they're trying to say, and not using some of probably the right words, is how are you going to accept the whole me?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because I want to bring the whole me to work. Okay.
Right.
And I want you to accept the whole me. And y'all have a really cool play in dealing with the whole person. The whole person at work. It isn't an idealized, perfect, utopian thing. The people make mistakes. People are flawed. Mistakes in their lives happen. Like you said, Hurricane Harvey. Things happen, and companies have to do a better job on the recruiting side of saying, here's how we're going to take care of you. So here's programmatically, we've got a way internally to focus on your career. 2, we've got a training and development program that's lights out, that's micro learning, it's built around you. You tell me you want to learn Python, great, I'm going to put you in Python classes, put you on Python projects, you're going to learn Python. Like I've heard you, and we're going to put that into the mix. Got you covered. That how do we accept the whole you? Now you're dealing with all of that stuff around the edges of student, debt, student loan debt being repaid, and these types of things that basically say we care about you, and we care about the whole you. So companies that tell that story have a better chance of attracting talent versus companies that can't
That's
tell
amazing. The whole premise or idea of we're essentially back in the day, I guess the benefits were, most companies probably at this stage are offering medical benefits because they're required to do so by law.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, but they have to do it to be competitive as well. But the fact that they're offering benefits now as a gesture to say, we know this is life is difficult. We know life is, throws a lot of stuff at you, and there's unexpected events. There's people come from different situations economically. We're going to help you weather those ups and downs. All right, we're going to be essentially your family, right? Your pseudo parents.
Right.
And we're going to protect you and take care of you, and you're one of us.
That's
And
right.
here are the tools and safety nets and support systems and mechanisms that we're going to give you. So
now,
I really like
it's
that.
it's not just words on a page.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is you can actually bring it to life with programs and show people programmatically, like, listen, you're joining a family. And in joining our family, here's what we've got programmatically. Here's how we're going to take care of you. Here's what we're going to do to make sure that you are productive, but you're engaged and you're happy. Your happiness actually means something to us, because when you're happy, you're filled with ideas. You're filled with productivity. You're filled with engagement. You're filled with all this value that's going to make the firm better. You're better, and we care about you being at your best. It really affects the way that people used to look at training. CEOs were the worst. CEOs, CFOs were the worst. Is they would look at training and say, well, what if we train them and they leave?
Right.
Which went on for, like 2 decades.
Right.
And the retort, now, thank God, is, well, what if we don't train them and they stay?
Yeah.
So
That's great.
right. So the bit now in training has gone, we want the best version of you while you're here.
Right.
That's what we want. We're not going to get into you're here for 2 years or 10 years or 20 years or 2 months. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is that we want the best version of you whilst you're here. And this is a program that actually helps that. So,
Yes.
Again, I don't see any no's. I love it. What can I do to be helpful?
Well, I think you've been extremely helpful. And some of the phrases that you're throwing out there about how the mentality of the benefits person, right, who is our contact. I guess my one question would be that when this benefit person, I don't know, whatever, goes up the ladder, right, for final approval, whether it's they're reporting to the CFO or the CEO or something like that, and the CEO and CFO, they're not on the ground level. They're not as speaking with these people who are living paycheck to paycheck on a daily basis. And they're like, well, we don't want to facilitate a program like this that gets our employees into more debt or something like that. Where these HR people know that, hey, this is just a financial safety net. There's protections in place. If we don't give them access to the low cost money, they're going to borrow from their 401k and go to a high interest option or a payday lender. How do you think we help the HR person sell Kashable to the CFO, to the CEO, to sort of circumvent these issues?
Well, so you've already got a good story for the CFO, because you've got a story of, listen, these people, again, things happen, and they're going to go and do these other things. It's just going to happen. So let's get in front of it and actually mitigate their risk and help them in a way. But everything ties back to the retention of talent. Everything that you're talking about. This is just another way. It's another way to retain our top talent. That's it. Because the value, if you can get 1% more of yield out of your top performers, it's the totality of the rest of the workforce.
Right.
So when you make that economic case, CEOs and CFOs are paying attention. It's like, hey, we can retain them. We have a better chance. It's called regrettable turnover. We have a better chance of retaining them. A. B, we even have a better chance of them producing more yield. And that changes the business. So I think the business case to finance is, marketing is either fear or greed. Those are the only two platitudes in marketing. So on one level, what keeps CFOs up at night is the same thing that keeps HR up at night. It's that loss of, all of their best players all coming in on Tuesday and all leaving, and they're left with nothing but C and D and B talent, and you can't do anything with that. You may as well fold up the shop. So they care about that. I think the 401k story is a really compelling one to them, because it's like, listen, they're gonna, when they get jammed up, they're gonna get the money. It's just a question of where they're going to get the money from, and this ranges all the way from the 401k all the way to the street and loan sharking. They're gonna, when the drivetrain goes out on the car, they got to get it fixed. So that's just going to happen. Now, what we want to do is put something in place that they don't have to do all that other predatory shit, and they don't have to steal from themselves, because that just adds more stress. And now you kind of tie that back to the 401k. It isn't just that it's depleting, because that's a market issue. It's that's going to take their mind off the ball, and that's going to affect productivity. So again, greed, fear. You don't want them tapping the 401k, because that's going to create fights at the house. That's going to create stress on the job, because they're thinking about their retirement. Well, everyone does, and that's fine. They should be thinking about their retirement. And if they're stealing from themselves, then they're ramping up the stress, which is taking them away from being productive. So it's in your best interest that you don't let them do that. You give them another option. It doesn't cost you anything. Actually, it doesn't cost you anything. What you're doing is you're offering up something that will help them not be stressed out by depleting their 401k, or worse, going through all the predatory stuff, or loan sharking or anything else. So I think you've got a story to finance. I think you've got, so it's a multi-pronged story. To the benefits people, it's just, this is another spoke in a much larger wheel. Done. To the HR person, this is about engagement. And that's how you would talk to them. This is about, hey, listen, this is yet another program, like a wellness program, like a financial wellness program, like a student loans repayment program. This is another way to engage our talented, our people, and show that we care, and actually follow up on that we care. All right, so there's that. To the CFO, we already went through that one, and you got a story to recruiters. And I think you should tell a story to recruiters that shows that, hey, you can differentiate via benefits, and via that they'll bring that whole you to work, your whole self to work. We've got ways to actually, we're going to take care of you. Here's programmatically, like, what if this was listed in the job description as, down there where it gets into benefits, 401k, da, 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 da. And then, then it says, like, oh, by the way, we also have these other types of programs for you as well, because we care. Well, if I'm reading that as a candidate, and I've got two of those in front of me, and one of them has it and one of them doesn't, and it's equal on every other level, well, why wouldn't I go with that company? Seems like they actually give a shit.
Right.
So you've got a story for recruiters that essentially says, we can help you recruit. We can programmatically, if you help us get in with HR and get this thing implemented, we can help you recruit talent. They're listening to that, because they're trying to find they're trying to find anything that will help them recruit, because it's difficult. And you got a story for HR, you got a story for BINs, and you got a story for a good story for the finance folks. But I think that's essentially, and you also have an operations story, which is odd, but ops people care about stability. So things being, predictive and stable, and stress creates instability. And so, you've got a way to treat stress, financial stress, in a way that keeps things stable. So you can kind of come in, you got multi-points that where you could come in. HR and Benny's, they're the ones that are going to make the final yes, no, this, that, and the other. But you've got, and I think you should think about all these different entry points, that if you're talking to a COO, he's like, listen, I get it. You care about stability. You want to make sure that things the trains run on time. You know what gets in the way of that? Financial stress. And, the occasional thing where people need a little bit of money and they don't have access. And they do other things, but they've got to fix something. They got to repair something. They got to do something. And we have a way of mitigating that financial stress. And so I think you got multiple touch points, multiple storylines, and yeah, I love it. Good
That's
play,
awesome.
solid play.
Well, I really appreciate the time, William. This has
Oh, no
been
worries.
very helpful for us, and hopefully we can stay in touch and keep you updated as we progress. Grown
Have
quite
to.
rapidly, and I think these angles are going to be more arrows in the quiver for us.
Good. And let me know as you go through. We'll see each other at conferences or whatever. Let me know again if after we get off the phone and whatnot. If you need something, just tell me. I'll help
Sounds
out.
good.
Love
Thank you very
play.
much.
Well, all right.
Talk to you later.
All right, brother. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.